Hello, hello, warriors. Keto Warrior Wendy here. Welcome and thank you for joining us today. I'm here with Kathy Tobin, the sleep coach, and we're going to be discussing the most wonderful things that we can do to help us get through sleeplessness and insomnia. Kathy is an emotional freedom technique practitioner and which is tapping, and we'll talk about what that is. And she's going to give us some tips and tricks on how we can get ourselves through sleepless nights. So I'm going to turn everything over to my friend Kathy. Welcome, Kathy. Thank you for joining me.
Well, thank you so much for having me, Wendy. It's a pleasure to be here. So I'm going to do my best to put everyone to sleep today. So I hope we're successful in that.
That's your job.
That's my job. You're right.
Okay, Kathy. So I think first thing that everybody wants to know is, what is sleep and why do we need it?
Sure. Well, sleep is, it's been called the human pill to performance. It's a biological need. It's just as important and necessary to us as food, water, air. We simply cannot survive without it. And it is the time of day when we give our bodies a chance to calm down, and not only are we getting rest, but while we're resting, our bodies are rebuilding, rejuvenating, repairing. General activity during the day takes its toll on us, and we have to allow ourselves the time to heal and top up our energy. And if we're not sleeping and that doesn't happen, then we start sort of a downward spiral, and it's very hard once that starts to get out of it.
Okay. So actually, I'm kind of curious, first of all, Kathy, is how did you end up in this career?
Are you asking for my story, how I became an EFT practitioner?
I would love to know how you became an EFT practitioner and how you brought yourself around to focusing on sleep issues. That so many of us struggle with sleep issues, that I would really love to hear a little bit about your journey before we carry on any further.
Sure, I'm happy to share. About 10 years ago, life was motoring along, I thought, pretty well, pretty comfortably. But in that year, in a relatively short period of time, about a 4-month span of time, things kind of went south in a hurry. In that 4 months, my sister-in-law died, my mother died, my mother-in-law died, my marriage of 25 years ended. I have 2 sons, and each of them were in a different college, so my family unit just scattered. And at that time, I had been owner-operator of a business in a beautiful Victorian building. And as a result of divorce, I had to sell the building, and that meant my business had to close. So here I am in my mid-50s with, no income, no place to live, no family unit, overcome with grief. 3 important people in my life were gone. And I became so overwhelmed with emotion. And when we get talking a little bit more about EFT, you'll understand that it's all about our emotional health and how our emotional health affects every other aspect in our lives. So here I am, so overcome with emotion that I can't focus. I can't sleep. And I just had no idea what to do, where to go. So obviously I needed help, and I visited every, I'm going to call traditional place to get help. So I tried counseling, and I tried psychotherapy. I had a couple of trips to a psychiatrist, but that was my mental health. Then for my physical health, I started doing things like I went to a nutritionist to change up my diet, a naturopath, maybe regular massages would help with my stress. Then I thought, well, maybe it was a spiritual thing. So I added in the yoga and the meditation and the focusing on gratitude and prayer. And as much as all of these things were very supportive and very helpful, they weren't permanent. 2 hours after leaving the massage table, nothing had changed in my life. And it was that point that I ran across EFT. And that's where everything turned around. It was absolutely transformational. The wonderful thing about EFT, as we get further into describing how it works, is that it is actually a permanent solution to those really negative, deep-seated emotions that keep us stuck and hold us back. And once I was able to eliminate those, then I could see very clearly what the choices were that were available to me, and I was in a much better place to choose so that I could move forward quite comfortably. And I was so impressed with how quickly and how effectively and how safely this worked that it just became my new focus and my new passion. Everybody on the planet needs to know about EFT and how wonderful it is. And so that has become my focus. And I'm so grateful for this opportunity, Wendy, because I just love to share this with people. It's amazing.
Well, and that's what I loved when we met at Kathy and I met at a vendor show, and we met over a year ago when I was first starting my keto transformation. And her business card kept popping out at me over the course of the last year, so I knew I had to connect with her again. And it was your passion, actually, that really made me want to speak to you again. So I'm so glad that we've put this video together, and that you get a chance to share this. So you found EFT. What made you actually particularly choose sleep as your niche?
One of the wonderful things about us human creatures is we have to have the proper motivation to make a change. We like habit. We don't like to make change. And we have to find ourselves in a place where the pain is greater than the effort and the motivation required to make that change. So most of us have to be in a place of pain. And one of the first places that shows up when life goes off kilter for us is in our sleep. That's one of the first places where people are going to notice that things aren't in balance anymore, and they're not enjoying life, and they're not having that joyful participation in life. And that's one of the first places that they're going to go looking for ways to make a change. So that was my doorway to invite people in and to show them how EFT could be so successful with that.
Awesome. So how long should we sleep every night?
Okay, that's an interesting question. Science, of course, there's lots of scientific research around sleep, and science tells us that we sleep in 90-minute cycles. So it goes the REM sleep and the deep sleep, and we do this 90-minute cycles 5 times a night. So that works out to 7.5 hours. So the 8 hours that we've been told is pretty reasonable. And for the majority of people, that's true. But with everything else, as well as sleep, there's always exceptions to the rule. So there's, now I'm going to give you a couple of very technical terms. One is a long sleeper, and the other one is a short sleeper. But a long sleeper is someone who requires more than that 7.5 and 8 hours sleep. And obviously a short sleeper is someone who is rejuvenated after less than that. But the reason it's important that you sort of experiment and discover whether you are in one of those two rather than in the norm, 7.5, is because if you're a long sleeper and you require, say, 9 hours of sleep, and you're getting 8, and you're still feeling zapped and you're not refreshed, then you're assuming that you're not getting quality sleep, when in fact it's just that you need a little bit more. The same with short sleepers is if you're only needing 6.5 or 7 hours sleep and you're forcing yourself to stay in bed for 8, then that extra time you're spent flipping and flopping and tossing and turning and frustrated that you're not sleeping. So you're beating yourself up because you're in bed, but you really don't need to be. So it's important to kind of figure out where you fit into that. Just an interesting fact is Einstein was a long sleeper. I think that explains that weird bedhead thing he had going on there. And Edison, invented the light bulb. He was a short sleeper. That makes sense to me. If you're up and it's dark, you need the light bulb to see what you're doing.
Absolutely.
There's a little sleep trivia for you.
Who knew? That's awesome trivia. I like trivia like that.
Yeah.
So what happens? So we've talked, you're going to sleep, we're getting good sleep, we wake up, we're rested. What happens when you what happens when you have one night where you're restlessly sleeping?
I think almost every one of us, myself included, still has a night every now and then that we don't feel we're getting the quality rest that we would like. That's pretty much normal. I mean, it can be as a result of so many things, your day's activities. Maybe you were out visiting a friend and you had a coffee too late at night. That's quite normal, and I wouldn't be concerned about that at all.
So then what happens when it becomes chronic? What happens when it's night after night? You're waking up, you're tossing, you're turning, or like me, my problem isn't so much sleeplessness as it is insomnia, where I want to go to bed, but my brain is still on. So I stay up and work, or I do something else to try and tire myself out so that I can even get to sleep. So,
right.
I guess what happens, when that starts to become a chronic problem. I mean, once in a while, obviously our bodies, sometimes we don't always need as much sleep. Sometimes we need a little bit more. It's just like when you're dieting, sometimes you need less food, sometimes you need more food. We all have that ebb and flow, right?
Yes.
But what happens when it becomes chronic, that it's happening all the time? Then what?
Okay. First thing I'd like to share with you is what we call the rule of 3. So if for 3 nights a week, you're not sleeping as well as you would like, and that happens for 3 weeks in a row, and that pattern continues for 3 consecutive months, then it's pretty much agreed that you're now into insomnia. So it's regular. As we mentioned before, on and off, that's not such a big deal. It's when it's consistently you're not getting enough sleep. And so your body's not getting the chance to repair and rejuvenate itself, and it starts to wear out. And oftentimes chronic illnesses come up here because there's just constant wear and tear, and we're not machines. Even machines have to have a rest and repair every once in a while. So as you continue to go without sleep, one of the first things you're going to notice are things like moods. You're going to be grumpy and irritable. You're going to lose your focus. Your reaction time is going to be less. When you think about airline pilots or even your taxi driver, your Uber driver, and that if they've not slept well, their reaction time is less, and it becomes quite a safety issue then. Relationships, you're not going to be as patient and as understanding. It's going to show up in your careers. You're not going to be on the ball. You're not going to have that edge that you might have had if you had enough sleep. So, it even affects things like your social life because, at the end of the day, you're invited out to meet a few friends and have a visit, and you might get home from work and say, you know what, I just can't do that tonight. So it's going to affect every other aspect in your life.
My youngest daughter, I just want to ask you about this. My youngest daughter, when she was 11 or 12, was really struggling with depression, and I didn't know. And it really interrupted her sleep, and it caused her to have hallucinations. Because I guess because when your brain is so sleep deprived, it starts to see things that aren't even there. So once we
That's
got her
right.
some treatment and she started getting some sleep again, she stopped seeing things that weren't there. So,
Yes.
it can get really serious if you don't address your sleep issues.
Absolutely. So that's the negative example of how it affects your creativity, perhaps. So if you're at the top of your game and you're well rested, you're very creative, and the ideas are flowing wonderfully. But if you're sleep deprived, your creativity may actually cause issues for you like that.
Yeah, I can understand that, because it's almost like setting up mental blocks for yourself. It's almost like putting up roadblocks, because now, things aren't firing 100%. You're not getting all the oxygen up there because you're too busy yawning, trying to get the oxygen to the rest of you.
Yes.
I can definitely see how that would impair your brain function.
Yes.
So, what is the difference between sleeplessness and insomnia?
I think it's just terminology, really. I mean, I'm sure that we all suffer with a bit of sleeplessness. It's like we mentioned a little earlier. Every once in a while you have perhaps an illness, perhaps you have a situation where you're grieving the loss of anyone in your family, a pet. You're going to go maybe a number of nights, maybe even a week or so without sleeping, so you're going to suffer from sleeplessness or struggle with sleeplessness. Insomnia is when it's on a continuous basis, and no matter what you try, it doesn't seem to make any difference.
Okay. So I follow a ketogenic diet,
Mm-hmm.
and a number of the people that are going to be watching this on the replay follow a ketogenic diet as well. Could you please explain the correlation between poor sleep and weight loss?
Absolutely. So poor sleep goes right hand in hand with a lack of energy, and again affecting your creativity. And I'm sure that it takes a bit of creativity to come up with a wonderful meal plan. So you don't feel like making a meal plan, you don't feel like stopping for groceries on the way home from work, so you go through the drive-through, or you pick up something frozen and you pop it in the oven, and that's how you feed your family. So there's that physical aspect of it as well. But EFT is hugely targeting the emotional aspects of eating, and there's emotional aspects to everything we do, and eating is no different. So if you were to take a trip back into your memory banks, you might discover there are some limiting beliefs around how you eat and what food means to you and your body. So an example for me might be my dad was an Irish immigrant. So he would, when we went out for dinner, he would say, you can have whatever you want to eat, you can order anything you want on the menu, but you must eat it all, because when I was a child, we didn't have enough to eat some of the time. So that's how I was raised. Well, I understand completely where he was coming from, and I absorbed that belief from him. But now we go to a restaurant, and very few restaurants give you what is a normal portion. So now I'm going to a restaurant and I'm eating, twice as much as I should. So while that's not directly related to the amount of sleep, it's certainly your amount of sleep does impact the emotions that you carry with you, and you just don't have the energy to make the right choices. You tend to get a little bit lazy, and you fall back into those old patterns that you learned many years ago.
I also know that if you're not getting enough sleep, it stresses your body. So it raises your cortisol levels. It can cause a raise in histamine levels as well. And
Right.
so when you're raising your cortisol levels, your body's not interested in losing weight.
Right.
Your body's interested in being stressed out, and it can only do one or the other. So you need to reduce those cortisol levels by getting a better night's sleep. Is that correct?
Absolutely. Yes. Right on.
Okay, cool. So let's talk about EFT. Let's talk about what is it? I mean, for a lot of people, what we're talking about right now, they've never ever heard of it. So what
Okay.
exactly is emotional freedom technique?
Emotional freedom technique has been nicknamed tapping. And it's actually a combination of cognitive talk therapy and stimulating specific acupressure points on the upper part of your body and on your fingertips. All of us are energetic creatures. We all have energy meridians that flow through us. Everything, including the chair that we're sitting on right now, is made of energy. As we have experienced negative events and memories and feelings, we create blocks in that energy. And those blocks are causing us trouble, and they're created limiting beliefs that prevent us from moving forward. And they're mostly fears. When we look at them really deeply, they're mostly a collection of fears that we have been taught with the intention to keep us safe. Okay, so if I could just give you a short example that might be pertinent to the people that are with us here. When we're young, we are told very adamantly never to speak to strangers. It's not safe under no circumstances. You could speak to 100 strangers, but there might be one that would be dangerous. And so as a matter of survival, it's just understood that we don't speak to any stranger. You most certainly don't take their money, their candy, their puppy, nothing. So now we're adults and we're entrepreneurs. And the first thing we have to do is go out and speak to every stranger that we come across. And when they hire us, we want to take their money. We're encouraged to do that. That's how our business works. But a lot of young entrepreneurs aren't able to work their way through that emotional fear of speaking to strangers because it's not been safe for them for so many years. So that would be a negative limiting belief that served us once, but now is actually getting in the way. So EFT, by combining cognitive talk therapy and the specific acupressure points, we're actually able to release that limiting negative belief. And once it's gone, it's gone. And now we're free without that fear to take that positive action that we were unable to take before.
Okay. Excuse me. So how do we know it's working? Like, is it, because I have personally done EFT before. So many, many years ago, and I was very sick when I was doing it. So with that being said, I'm not sure I noticed anything. And that's partly because I had so much going on that I don't even know if I could have noticed that there was something going on. So now, if I wanted to practice tapping on myself, how would I know that it's working?
Okay, there's a couple of things you can look for. First is you need to be as specific as possible. So choose a specific event. Maybe it was you went through the drive-through and they messed up your coffee. You didn't get the right coffee that you were looking forward to. So then you would look through your body to see if there was any places this showed up. Does this give you tension in your shoulders and in your neck? Does this make you so angry that you have that knot in your stomach? Has your breathing changed? It's a little more shallow and a little more rapid. Maybe you're actually angry. Is there a headache coming because of your frustration? And the other thing is actually name the emotion that you feel. Like, is it anger? They've done this way too many times. Is it frustration? Is it just impatience? And on a scale of 0 to 10, you would rate how you feel on that scale, with 0 being this is not an issue at all, and 10 is I'm just about at my breaking point. You do that before you start to tap, and then you go through the tapping rounds, and then you go back and you check in on that again. And if the number has changed, then you're able to see that you have immediate results.
Okay. So what does that look like for someone who's not familiar with it, what does tapping look like? Can you walk us through some tapping that we could use if we're having a night where we're struggling to sleep that might help us get ourselves to sleep?
Of course, I would love to. Okay, so there's 3 different levels of tapping. There's bronze, silver, and there's gold. So I'm going to take you through a round of bronze tapping right now, and that's just showing you the points to tap on. Okay, so if you may feel a little silly, but that's okay. We're all going to be silly at the same time. So I like to use 2 fingers just to make sure that I get the right point. And the first point is right where the hair on your eyebrow starts. So just a little bit of tapping on your eyebrow there. Yeah. Now be thinking as we're doing this, be thinking of something that you find irritating or annoying, nothing too over the top. And give it a number, 0 to 10. Tuck that number in the back of your mind. And then the second point is out here on the side of your eye. Now, right beside your eye socket, each of these points that we're going to tap on today is on a bone. And the reason for that is the energy meridian is closest to the skin surface there, so we can readily access it to stimulate it. The next point is again on the bone, but right underneath your eye. The next spot is on your upper lip, right underneath your nose. Then we move to this one on your chin. Now the next point is right where a man's button-down collar would sit. So we have your collarbone there. If you go out about an inch and down about an inch, there's actually a spot there that feels kind of tender. And you'll know that when you find it. So just a little bit of tapping there. The next spot is about 4 inches underneath your arm. Now this one feels a little bit ridiculous, but the kids have absolute panic with this. They think this is just great because they do it like this, and they look like a monkey. We call that the monkey point. EFT, by the way, works on any creature that has an energy meridian system. So that's infants, children, adolescents, adults, seniors, dogs, cats, anything that has energy. And the last point is right up here on the top of your head. That can be a really tender spot, so you want to go gently. Okay, so let's just do a round. And don't forget to breathe. And remember, you're focusing on that annoying or frustrating event, maybe even a person. And under your arm there. And the top of your head. So that's one full round of bronze tapping. Does anyone now, when you go back to that event and you think about it again, has your perception changed a little bit? Has it shifted a bit? Has your number changed?
Mine has, and anybody else who's joined us, please do feel free to speak up. We'd love to hear what your results are from this. So for me, yes, absolutely.
Okay, so that's the way we measure that energy is moving and some of that negative energy is moving out. And now you're all experts at bronze tapping. It's just that simple. When you're in the moment and you're feeling, when you're in the moment and you're feeling that frustration, that anger, just some bronze tapping like that will help you to regulate your system and make you feel more calm. Now, the second level is the silver, and that's where we add in a bit of language. So we start that with a setup phrase, and the setup phrase always begins with even though, and then we fill in the blank with whatever our issue is. And for the purposes of today, I'm going to use stress and anxiety for all of us here, hoping not to trigger someone too intensely. And then it always finishes with something positive. And most times we say, I deeply and completely love and accept myself. But any positive comment or phrase, you can even say, but it's going to be okay, or but I will be okay, just anything to end on a positive. And then we shorten that down to a reminder phrase, just to keep the body focused in on what it is that we're tapping on. and we do the round of tapping just like we did. So if I could lead you through that, I'd like you to echo and to mirror what I do, and I'll lead you through a round or two of silver tapping, okay? So again, think of an occasion, a memory, something that has a negative emotional spark to it. Give it a number, 0 to 10. And the setup phrase always starts on the side of your hand, and we're going to say it 3 times. So even though, perfect, thank you. I have all this stress and anxiety.
I have all this stress and anxiety.
I deeply and completely love and accept myself.
I deeply and completely love and accept myself.
Even though I have all this stress and anxiety in my life,
Even though I have all this stress and anxiety in my life,
I deeply and completely love and accept myself.
I deeply and completely love and accept myself.
Yeah, and the 3rd time, even though I have stress and anxiety in my life,
Even though I have stress and anxiety in my life,
I deeply and completely love and accept myself.
I deeply and completely love and accept myself.
Okay, so now we're going to move to the tapping points and just shorten that down to the stress. And echo for me, please. This stress.
The stress,
Yep, this stress.
the stress,
All this stress.
all the stress,
Yeah, so much stress in my life.
so much stress in my life,
Stress that I can feel in my body.
stress that I can feel in my body.
Yeah, so difficult for me to relax.
So difficult for me to relax.
Yeah. So much stress in my body.
So much stress in my body.
So much stress in my life.
So much stress in my life.
Okay, so give yourself a moment to take a breath. You know, if you need to take a drink of something, go ahead. And just focus in on that particular event or memory again. And share with me, please, if the number has changed.
Yeah, I've gone from all kinds of caring to not caring.
Perfect. So that's an example of silver. Now, the gold level is where you would work one-on-one with the coach, and you would bring your specific issues to the coach, and you would work with your coach specifically on the events in your life or the issues that you're having trouble moving past right now. It seems so ridiculously simple. You'd almost think, how could it possibly work? And yet it is so effective that I can refer you to a series of about 20 medical articles that show how effective it is. And we're using it now to help people who are struggling with PTSD in veterans associations and addictions, because addictions have a lot of emotional component to it. So ridiculously simple, but extremely effective, and not necessarily easy, because some of the emotional issues that come up with this can be pretty intense.
Like
Now,
anything, when you start and do, because when you start to deal with your health on an energetic, spiritual, emotional level, you have, there's a lot of intensity that comes with that, because we spend so much time. I mean, the fact is like I said, most of this audience that I come from, we all come from being really large. We come from emotional eating. We come from stuffing everything down. So when
exactly.
you start to release all that stuff that you've stuffed down, not only has it been stuffed down, but you've put layers and layers and layers on top of it because you haven't dealt with it. So you've added more and more intensity to that. So when it comes out, it's like layers of an onion, right?
Exactly. I'm glad you used that metaphor. Yes, that's perfect. Whatever is our issue right now in this moment is that layer. But once we take that layer away, then it creates another. It doesn't create it. It shows us the next layer, and we just keep working until we get to what or who or how that limiting belief was formed in the first place. And then we can eliminate it. And I really like, Wendy, what you said about stuffing things down, stuffing emotions down, because that's exactly the case with emotional eating. Sometimes sometimes what we build around us, like I'm making movements here around my belly. Sometimes the walls that we put up around us are emotional walls. You know, if I wanted to create a barrier so that I didn't have to show my true self, then maybe I would use that by putting on some excess weight. So there's most definitely a relation between what we stuff in our mouths and what we've stuffed down emotionally and spiritually as well. Yeah,
Oh,
absolutely.
absolutely.
Hmm.
Absolutely. So I wanted to ask you, um, can we use this to help us lose weight? I have a lot of people who are triggered by cravings and things like that. And this would be a really great tool if they knew how to use it to walk themselves through a craving and not actually go and put the food in the face that they're thinking about putting in. So can this be used in the same manner to help people with that? Can it also help them lose weight in the long run?
Absolutely. Absolutely. It's very effective with cravings. It's most effective when you can get to it before you actually have the craving. But if you happen to find yourself in the moment, then use the bronze tapping that we were just practicing. Absolutely. Even though I had this craving for, and you put your favorite in there or whatever is in front of you. Cheetos and wine is mine. um, Even though I feel like I really want to have open that bag of Cheetos, I choose to show myself some love um, and release this craving. Or even though I have this desire for this glass of wine, I deeply and completely love myself and choose not to do that. So absolutely, it's very effective with cravings right in the moment. If I can go back to the story I shared about my immigrant dad and having to eat everything on my plate, if I do a couple of those onion layers and I release that limiting belief, now I can go into a restaurant and I can eat as much as I want and leave the rest and not struggle with that emotional spark that goes, that trigger that goes there. I'm not being loyal to dad if I don't eat all of those French fries that are on my plate. So yes, absolutely a terrific support for weight loss or healthy eating. I prefer to think of it as healthy eating. Um, you know, eating what we need to sustain us in a healthy way.
Absolutely. I agree with you 100% on that.
Hmm.
So going forward, if anybody wanted to get in touch with you,
Hmm.
how would they get in touch with you?
Absolutely. You can go to my website. There might be some information there for you. Oh, by the way, I think there's a free anxiety questionnaire on my website if that's something you'd like to check into. It just might help you get a better understanding of where your stress and energy level is right now. My email address is Catherine, CATHERINE, at EFTsleepcoach.com. And happy to have you text or call me as well at 905-441-0198.
And when we post the video, I'll make sure that that information is posted with it.
Thank you. Thank you. And understand too that I'm well aware that EFT and tapping is not something that a lot of people are familiar with. So if you'd like to have a conversation around your particular issues and what work with me might look like or how EFT might be helpful for you, then I'm more than happy to share that information with you so that you may decide whether you think it's something for you or not.
And you work with your clients over this platform, over Zoom?
If they're anywhere in this area, I can do in person. I can also do phone and Zoom are the three options that I have. I find that people who are not comfortable showing emotions are actually much more comfortable by phone, and it's just as efficient. It works very, very well.
Wonderful. So we do have a couple of people here. I just want to put out to them if they have any questions for Kathy, that now would be the time to bring them up.
Absolutely.
And if not, then we will just move on. And I'd like to thank you very, very much for your time. I'd like to thank everybody who came and joined us today. And for those of you catching this on the replay, thank you so much for watching it on the replay as well. We really appreciate all the love and support. And I'm going to do the call to action. Please like, share, follow, turn on notifications, and subscribe both to Keto Warrior Wendy and to Kathy Tobin. I will put all of that information, how you can find Kathy, underneath the video once we get it posted.
Thank you so much. It's been a pleasure, Wendy, and I wish everyone the very best.
Thank you so much for being here. Thank you to our audience for being here as well today. And this is Keto Warrior Wendy, keeping keto real.